And we
What were we thinking?
And there's a CD somebody recorded called Monkees Live in '67.
Ugh.
It wasn't recorded to be a CD, I don't think. Somebody just held up a microphone. But it's not bad. It's like, it sounds like this garage band, you know, in front of 20,000 people.
Great question.
They must have had the intent that we were going to eventually go and play. Because when they cast us, you had to be able to sing and play. My audition piece, as most of you probably know, it was Johnny Be Good from Chuck Berry, which I used to do as a cover tune in cover bands. I don't remember, what did you do, like Bo Diddley or something?
No, I did a Beatles song called The Night Before.
What?
Yeah,
What?
there you go.
Oh my God.
Peter did Crooked Creek, probably, or something. Davey did, you know, I'm going to build a mountain or something. So they clearly had the intent that if the show went on the air, which was a big if, you know, it nearly didn't sell.
Well, more precisely, it did not sell the first time out. And they all came back and said, oh, it didn't sell.
On the first overnights?
Yeah.
Not overnights.
Whatever they're called, yeah.
Upfronts. Yeah. The upfronts, the network upfronts, it didn't sell. The show didn't sell. And Bob went back in, re-edited, Bob Ravelson, and re-edited and tweaked it, and it very, very nearly did not sell at all.
You may not know this, but the Monkees was not a hit TV show. I mean, we all love it, and I love it, and look at it with great pride and approbation, but it was number 21 nationally. I think it was the highest it ever got. And we are the margins, gents and ladies. We are the remnants. It's amazing that we're all here.
A similar thing happened to Star Trek. Any Star Trek fans? There you go. Star Trek got canceled after 1 year, 2 years, if that. And the fans, you know, the fans were, and back then, gosh, it must have been tough to, you know. But
my mother called me in tears. What are you saying, Mom? I said, Mom, you're totally unintelligible. You sound like what Micky hears at dinner. You sing Star Trek got canceled. Mom, it'll be back. I'm living proof of that.
This is right. The show was not a major big hit show, but it did have a very dedicated following. And it ran for 2 years, only 2 years.
56
But in
episodes.
those days, 2 years was 50-something episodes. These days,
That's like 10 years.
with 8 episodes a year, or 6, if, you know, 6 or 8 if you're lucky. The equivalent today would have been, the Monkees would have been about 5 or 6 years.
Great. Next question.
This question is from Micky. You just had a great story arc on this show, Difficult People. I'd like to know how that came about and what did you enjoy most about it? And Mike, I have the same question for you, but about your cameo on Portlandia. And finally, will we see more of this sort of thing?
And finally, what?
Will we see more of this? Would you do more cameos, more story arcs on regular shows?
Make me an offer. In my case, one of the creators of the show was a fan and came up with this, you know, wacky idea. And I read it and I said, I really have to do this. This is so like left field, out of the blue. You know, I won't repeat the lines I said, kind of rude, but I watched the show and I accepted the offer. And I'm very proud of that little piece of footage. What about you? How did Portlandia thing come about?
Portlandia was part of a landscape of television, of a television topography. Oh, you're changed into a man. With a nice hat. There you are. Of a television, because I was doing, first thing I took a swing at was something I called a music video, and then, kind of went from there. And then after that, it was pop clips, which was again MTV. And so I was up to my eyeballs in television, and none of it was narrative. None of it was. I actually called Mick up and I said, because he was doing a puppet-driven show. Puppet's hardly the right word. I mean, those are magnificent, beautiful works of art made out of foams of that called Spitting Image, and he did it in England. And I loved it. I thought it was beautifully directed and funny and so forth. And I said, "You want to do one for television parts?" Which was my next foray into TV. And so he came over and we worked on it, and it was a lot of fun. But never was there a branch for me necessarily. I was on a direct path out of the Monkees into more and more narrative and TV and books and movies and stuff like that.
Next question. Okay, this is for both of you, and I've got two I wanted to ask, but I'll let you guys decide which one. I want to ask one about Justice or about Headquarters. Which would you prefer?
Which album?
No, I mean, which question? I've got a question on Justice or a question on Headquarters. Which would you prefer to answer?
Doesn't matter.
All right, I'll go back to Headquarters. One of the things that I was glad to see when you guys went out in 2011 and 2012 was that you finally played all of your toys, which I think a lot of fans, me especially, consider to be the missing Monkee single. Were you guys, when you recorded it, you could tell you enjoyed it. Were you guys disappointed, or how disappointed were you when Lester could not make the deal to procure the publishing rights? And do you both feel that all of your toys would have been the single off Headquarters, and it could have been even bigger than I'm a Believer?
All of your choices was Harry Nilsson.
No, it was Bill Martin.
It was Bill Martin. Yeah, there were two really enlightened minds around us most of the time. One of them was Harry Nilsson, who I thought was just terrific, and the other was Bill Martin, who was mad as a hatter. And they were wonderful, spikes in the drink. But we didn't really have much to say about the music. It's true. Yeah, we didn't. And I got my first dose of that, like a bucket of cold water, when they came in and said, "Here's your second album." And that's it. But I couldn't pick a single if it hit me with a car. I wouldn't have known how to do it. I don't know whether Micky feels that or not, but I always had an opinion, but I couldn't play it.
What was your opinion of that song? That you can remember?
Well, the same thing I had about Bill Martin. I loved him. I mean, he was really a genuine comic genius, comic mind, and he was mad as a hatter.
Yeah, he was, to my mind, he was our Neil Cassidy,
if you will.
in a sense. He was that, I don't know if you know who Neil Cassidy was back in the 50s with Kerouac, and he was the subject of On the Road. He was the guy that nobody knew and nobody heard of, and there was no photographs, but he was that guy that kind of, I don't know how, he just inspired or was...
He was our joie de vivre. He was the esprit of the Monkees.
Yeah, that's
not,
great.
Not one of us could have carried the whole thing up. And it's interesting to me that Bill never got any airtime because he was so funny. And he would, we had this room that we went to in the back of the set that we would all sit around and talk, and other stuff. And Bill was in there and constantly riffing, constantly saying one thing after another, and that was funny. And if you get a chance, go online and spend time. Look for Sir William Martin, look for Bill Martin, look for Bill Martin of the Monkees. Bill introduced me to Harry Nilsson. He was a magic cat. I'm speaking in past tense because he's no longer with us. But he was a magic cat, just one of those guys. And I would just sit at his knee at his feet and just say something else, Bill, say something else. And a lot of what he said ended up driving us along a creative path that I think most of us didn't know we were on. So,
Thank you, gents.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, thank you both for coming, for starters. I appreciate you being here. I'm going to direct my question to Micky for starters. I saw 33 1/3 revolutions per monkey for the first time last week. I didn't even know it existed. But
Okay.
you know, it was
So-
aired like 50 years ago.
right, yeah. What? You didn't just make it? Oh no. No, anyway, toward the end of that show, there's a segment where Mike walks in, straps on a Les Paul, starts playing and singing. You sit down at a drum kit, start playing. And Brian Auger is in that show, and Buddy Miles is that show. And it got me thinking that was kind of almost a preview of what the Monkees could have been like post-TV show. And I was interested to know what other kinds of collaborations and crossings of paths happened with the Monkees and other artists of that ilk that never got recorded or filmed or otherwise known about.
Well, I don't think anything. Everything we did was recorded and filmed, and you know, we had those episodes where we had guest artists. Nez and Frank Zappa did a get together, and I got a kid named Tim Buckley to do a tune. I doubt there's anything that we did that was not recorded and filmed. I can't think of anything. But towards that,
Well, there was a poem with Yevgeny Yevdoshenko, who was a Russian Nobel winner.
Everyone believes him.
that the 33 1/3. Has anybody ever seen that 33 1/3? A few. 4 people. Yeah, 4 people.
It's hard to sit through, we know.
That's the worst thing I've
The
ever seen.
original intent was very different from how it came out. And that was mostly due to the fact that the musicians union went on strike the week before the special was to be produced by Jack Good and directed by Jack Good, a very famous British television producer director. And it was supposed to be done at NBC Studios, and the musicians went on strike, so they had to scrap that plan because the studio was shut down, and they moved the production to a film studio, MGM, where it was not under the same auspices as NBC. And it was, to my knowledge, one of the first television productions on videotape ever to be done as a remote. And they literally had to load these 2-inch videotape machines or 3-inch videotape machines onto the back of a flatbed and ride them out to MGM Studios, hook them up with remote cables, because a lot of the show, if you've ever seen it, was done with a green screen. You know, the, what do you call it, video, blue screen technology, which at the time in 7, 8, 9, had very seldom, if ever, been done. Certainly not has a remote in the middle of a film studio. So the lighting wasn't, right. The whole thing was very, very difficult to do.
I think I can cast a little bit of light on the atmosphere that the shows took place in. It's important to understand that by the time that we did 33 1/3, we were a pariah. 4 heads of a pariah. We had become this monster that almost everybody in the studio system hated. So I was constantly looking over my shoulder for a hit, and we were not well received at that point. And I had it in my mind that, well, one of the things we can do to redeem ourselves is to play. We'll play live, and you'll hear how we play live. And everybody at the studio that I talked to about this, and everybody at the distribution system, which is NBC, that I talked to about this, hated the idea. They said, nobody wants to see you play. And that was, that was new information for me. I'm like, really? And all this time, silly me. So when we walked out there, it was not to, the enraptured praise of the millions. It was 2 or 3 people like, yeah. And so we did what we did. And it sort of looks like that. I mean, it's not, I don't denigrate it, but I think had we had a bigger bat, we could have knocked it over the wall. But the bat we had was the bat we had.
We have time for one final question.
This question is for Nez. I'm a big fan of the Wichita Train Whistle album. Yes. And particularly the song Don't Cry Now. And I was curious, was there any particular reason you never recorded a vocal version of that? And would you consider either recording a vocal version or posting the lyrics somewhere so they don't have to remain forever a mystery?
Well, thank you. No, I haven't really ever thought about doing that. But Wichita Train was a massive disappointment for me because I got it in my head, well, I like the Monkees music. They don't want me to have anything to do with the music, so I'll just put together a big band and do it. And Shorty Rogers and I hooked up this idea of the Wichita Train Whistle. And I came up with the now genius idea of getting the band drunk. So I had it catered by Jason's bartender, and who came in there and set up this lavish, no-host bar for 53 musicians, who when they came in and saw it, their eyes all got wide as saucers. Well, this is gonna be a good weekend. And so as you listen to the record, the band gets drunker and drunker and drunker until and I was getting more and more dismayed. I was thinking, this is not what I meant. I want to be Henry Mancini. And whoever the angel is that said, you're not Henry Mancini, was silent or perhaps drunk. And so when it started to come together, I said, well, I'll put them together. I'll order them like they are on the show. And that was a terrible mistake because it started off with the drunkest song. And so then years passed, I got all the masters back, and I put it together now, which if you order it from me, it goes from sober to drunk. It's a subtle shade of difference, but it's there.
Kind of like my life.
Yeah.
In fact, kind of like a lot of our lives.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's all the time we have. Please make some noise once again. Micky Dolenz and Mike Nesmith. Don't forget, you can still stop by there.